Welcome to the Enchanted Earth Podcast, where you will hear stories of nature with the power to transform our lives. These sacred stories are begging to be shared now. So listen in as my guest today shares one of their own. So welcome. Joining me today is Dr. Kim Hermanson, and let me tell you a little bit about Kim. She's a pioneering educator and faculty at Pacifica Graduate Institute. She has written 3 books on the power of creativity and third space, the non-cognitive visionary space that lies beyond our thinking mind. Her books, Getting Messy, Deep Knowing, and Sky's the Limit, have received rewards of excellence. She is known for her ability to quickly shift a person out of his or her thinking mind into an intelligent field of profound beauty that lies beyond thought. Her seminars attract visionaries, pioneers, and trailblazers who are pushing the wall with her to bring forth a new world. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kim.
Good to be here. Good to be here, and good to see you.
Well, I just want to share that I discovered your work through the Depth Psychology Alliance. Actually, I believe it was one of the workshops you did probably during COVID. I think it was 2020 or 2021. And I was so deeply moved by your technique of helping people get into this out of the mind, into the heart space, into their creativity. And I was so excited when you came out with your book, Deep Knowing, and love it. I have it right here. And I want to read a quote from it, but I would just love for you to just share a little bit about where your work is taking you right now.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. And my work. It's interesting. I never really felt like I felt like I was a troubadour out there on my own until I found depth psychology. And then it was like, oh yeah, this is where I belong. And my PhD is actually from the University of Chicago in adult learning. And I was always into creativity and imagery and deep knowing. And so, yeah, Pacifica found me, Pacifica Graduate Institute. I landed there and it was like, oh, I belong here. Really, the thrust of where I'm at is to get the word out about metaphor and the power of our right hemisphere, which we do not use in our culture. We're all in our thinking, and that is getting us into all kinds of trouble. And, even on a personal level, the way we think about things is what's problematic. A breakthrough happens when we have a shift of perception about something. And in order to see something new, we have to shift into the right hemisphere. That's the visionary part of our brain that can introduce us to new things. The left hemisphere is just always going to, control what it knows and be very rigid about that knowing. So we need to shift into that other space in order to solve world problems, solve our own personal problems, have a loving, peaceful, happy world. That's our right hemisphere should be the master, not the left hemisphere. And that's a neuroscientist named Ian McGilchrist that wrote a book called Master and His Emissary that just said that, himself, that the right hemisphere needs to be the master. So, yeah, so that's my work. I have a membership and I work with people every month in the membership. I have individual clients that I work with, and probably going to be doing a training program in the fall about my work. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
That is awesome. And what I find is so refreshing and so helpful is that your work, it is so simple. It doesn't require you to sit in meditation for an hour and seclude yourself. I mean, you literally bring us into this space within a couple of minutes. I mean, we're there. We're not even, seconds, we're there. And maybe we are a different group of people. We're probably not a representative sample of the world, but we certainly are people who are open to our creativity and are curious.
Yeah, and also, very sensitive people. I don't know whether the people in the membership would call themselves sensitive, but this is another way of knowing. And I believe sensitivity is a true gift. And getting back to the theme of your podcast here, is how the natural world speaks to us. It's not the language. I'm looking outside at a tree right now. The language of a tree isn't speaking to my thinking mind. It's thinking to my being, my sense of being, my sense of, being who I am in the world, which is also a right hemisphere, the function of the right hemisphere.
Oh,
So
yes. And it's the feeling space. That feeling space. Okay,
Very.
I'm gonna quote something here from you from Deep Knowing. I have so many things underlined and underscored in this book. Working with metaphor in this way that I describe in this book permits us to experience a dimension that we as humans only have accessed through spontaneous and unplanned visionary experiences. By connecting the human and the spiritual, metaphor allows us to enter mystical realms. Metaphor provides a way into a living field of intelligence and allows us to directly engage with its powerful energies. Oh, wow. It so captured my imagination because of my love of working with metaphor and symbols. And in feng shui, we're always working with metaphor. We're looking at how a home is laid out and connecting what's going on in the environment with the psyche of our client. And oftentimes there's something that just needs to shift a little that will help them shift that inner world as well. So, and the
Nice.
dreams and all of that. So, yeah, metaphor and symbols.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't said this yet, so I'm just going to bring it in. I started working with metaphor spontaneously. I was interviewing for a teaching position at a school of depth psychology in Petaluma, California. It's called Meridian. And the president of the school just asked me, rather than try to fit you into one of our classes to teach, why don't you just tell me what would you like to teach? And the word metaphor was spoken through me. I did not consciously, I wasn't thinking I would teach a class on metaphor. I'm in teaching and learning. I thought it's something around that. And he said, great, we'll call it the psychology of metaphor. And I walked out of there going, what just happened? I don't know anything about metaphor. I don't know anything about the psychology of metaphor. And that was just the beginning of a profound spiritual journey for me. All these amazing books synchronistically would just sort of show up on the power of metaphor, and just pulling all this material together for this class, a class of PhD students, was just amazing. It was really amazing, and just took me into a whole other place and made me see the world differently. Yeah, it was really profound. One of the most profound books, and I mention this all the time, is a book called Symbol and Metaphor in Human Experience by Martin Foss. It had been published in 1949 and had been out of print for decades. The only way I knew about this book was I was in this library and it just happened to be at this table I was sitting at. So it's just like, that's how these books would come to me. They would just like show up on the table. And it was like, oh, there's another perfect book to draw on. And Gregory Bateson, the scientist, was very into metaphor in the natural world. So yeah, doing this class was just amazing for me. And after the class had ended and I was in the grading papers stage, I had a very powerful visionary experience. And I just knew it was my life's work to bring metaphor, bring the power of metaphor forward, because it is the way to shift us into another dimension. It's like it's like the analogy is, if we're in a dark place, the only way we can figure out what to do is to feel our way, because we can't see anything. So we're feeling our way with metaphor. We're feeling our way into visionary experiences. We're feeling our way into another place, what I call third space. It's very much into feeling. As metaphor is an aesthetic language. it's both an image and a feeling. So if we say like, I'm on fire, we can see an image of fire, but we can feel, if somebody says that to you, you have a compassion and, it's an intimate language. You can feel like, oh yeah, I know what it would feel like to be on fire, or I feel lost right now, or I feel like I need to let go. It's all metaphor. We can see it, but we're as an image, but we're feeling it. And the power is being able to feel something. So, and we don't use that capacity in our culture. We're in our heads all the time. So anyway,
we so often are numb to what we're feeling. We could be in a space that is really not good for us, but it's also about being open to change and seeing things differently.
Yes, it really is. I mean, I think trust is the biggest part of this, because we know how to trust our thinking mind, and we think we should, so they're rational. But my clients that I've been working with for years they're all artists in their own ways, like a writer, a dancer, a visual artist, but they're doing visionary work, and it's deep visionary work. And the culture doesn't support this other way of knowing. And they're in that space of what I just said before, like the dark space it's the place of mystery. They have to trust it. They have to trust that they're doing the right thing. They have to trust what they're feeling. They have to trust, like, oh yeah, this is making sense, because everything in the culture and in their rational mind is saying, no, 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 like, just go get a job or whatever, like, it's just like, yeah. So it's very much about openness, and it's about trust as well. Yeah.
Wow. And those are things that, this work is really perfectly suited for right now on this planet. I mean, we're going through such, the great turning, as Joanna Macy talks about. We are going through such a shift. It's for people to discover this other way of being in the world. And you're a pioneer, bringing us on that, bringing us to this place. So you talked about a visionary experience. Would you like to share that?
Say more. Yeah, I can share it. It's in my book, Deep Knowing. Basically, it started as a dream. And so I was sleeping, and then it was in the waking, in that space of being almost awake. I found myself in the backyard of my house that I grew up in Iowa. And my mother was really into gardening. Our backyard was up like a park. It was just beautiful. So I'm in the backyard, and there's beauty all around me, but all of a sudden it's like pulsing beauty. It's not ordinary beauty. It's extraordinary beauty, like magical beauty. Like things were pulsing, 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 pulsing. And I was just like, whoa, just overtaken by it. And then I was lifted up into the sky. And this, again, it's the feeling sense. We feel the truth of things. I was pummeled through the sky, like pummeled, like something wanted me to see something. Like you have to, like almost being shaken, like shake, pummeled. And I see these, and this is Iowa, so the mountains are far away. So I'm in the sky for quite a while, and there's these mountains coming up, and at the velocity that I am being pummeled, I knew I was going to slam into the mountains and die. There's just no other choice. Like I couldn't stop this, and I was going at a very fast rate of speed. And so right at the second before I'm going to get, pulverized into, tiny bits, I'm whooshed in this mountain into this train tunnel. And I look out the windows of the train, and there's that pulsing, 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 like exquisite beauty. And a voice says third space, and then I'm bolted awake. And after that, my life was never the same. I knew that was my turning point. That was my work, and that I was being shown something that I needed to understand and to teach. And so I've been trying to do that ever since. I think that happened in 2008. So it's been, I don't know how many years, 18 years. Whoa. So yeah, I mean, that's been my path ever since. I found a home for this work in depth psychology. Although when we find our fields, we have our little things that don't fit, like that's not quite me. But my work is, metaphor, it takes us deep. And I love what you said before, which is so true. We have to keep it simple to go deep. Anything that's complicated, anything that's like a process, anything that's like a step, we're in our heads. We're in our heads directing our path. That's not going to take us to a deep place. A deep place has to be more about stillness and centeredness and what I would call like this feeling sense of metaphor. That's what takes us deep. And it has to be simple. The minute we go into a story, we're in our head. The minute we go into a narrative, we're in our head. So yeah, we have to stay simple. And also the other person's work that's really spoken to me is Eckhart Tolle's work on presence, because feeling brings us into the present moment, into a place of presence where we're not in that constant kind of trying to understand things. We're just in that pure place of presence and feeling. So anyway, I went a lot of places there when I was telling you about the visionary experience, but yeah, after that happened, life was never the same. This is my work. So
Love hearing stories of getting clear guidance on our life path. I think so many of us crave that. We really crave that, just tell me clearly, what am I supposed to do to feel fulfilled or to feel like I'm on my purpose here? I love that your story was, it was in this visionary space, like you said, you weren't asleep, you weren't awake. There is that intermediary period when visions can come to us that are so, so powerful, profound.
Yeah, it was truly, I mean, and as anyone knows who's had something like this happen, it's just like, whoa, it's not an ordinary dream here. We're going somewhere else. But yeah, maybe that's when the other side can really work with us is, we're not in that go place. We're capable of being worked with. Let's grab them now.
Yeah, and that sense of urgency by that speed. And there's just something undeniable about that. Like, whoa, like you've got to do this now. Like no more waiting.
Yeah. It was urgency and the feeling sense of that. I mean, I guess that's what distinguishes, a visionary experience from like a dream. It's like a dream, we get things, but we're not in that place of presence and being, almost pulverized and urgency. It was there was no question that almost like being shaken,
Yeah. When we talk about metaphor and symbolism, there is something that is very distinctly different from how you work with it. And I know you've said it in many ways, but I'd like to spell it out for everyone listening, because I've been working with metaphor and symbolism for most of my life through astrology, and then, of course, in dreams. And that kind of interpretation of metaphor and symbolism is very analytical. Like, what does this particular object represent in our everyday world? What are my connections with it? And we start going down this rabbit hole of analysis. And I know, because I have a very, very active brain, I can get into analysis paralysis. So how is your work with metaphor and symbols different?
I have to say that, well, we're not doing any analysis. And that can be frustrating to people. Even like in the last group session, one of the last people I worked with, she got an image of the ocean. It's like, okay, let's go there. Let's go into like sensual. I mean, how yummy is an ocean? And I know her on a personal level. I know she needs that nurturing, that feeling sense of ocean nurturing. But her mind, and this is all of us, this is not just her, but all of us, like, oh, but there's a beach and a rainbow, and then I can go down this path. And so, like, we're just automatically going into story. It's like, no, stay with the feeling sense. Stay with what it feels like to be ocean. That's powerful. That's potent. But it's like our brains just automatically want to take us somewhere. Like if we get a path as an image, we automatically want to go down the path and see what buildings are there, what people we might meet on the path, which is wonderful. Like all that work is cool. Like I've done so much of that in my life and I've loved it. But work is different because we have to stay with the feeling sense to go to that mystical place, to go to the place of the other side speaking to us. We have to stay simple and just be in that yummy, for many people, you in particular, Maureen, that yummy, nurturing, sensual, or it could be strong. You know, some people really, when they do this work, because we grow up not really having a strong, sturdy sense of self. And so we might get images that are very strong, and we need that strength right now. And when we stand in that place of our strength or that whatever it might be, then it's like we're in that place of connectedness where the other side can move us to where it wants us to go. Because to live a visionary life, and you are, Maureen, with your work, there's another way of knowing and being that is much more about presence and connectedness with the divine. And we have to get out of our heads in order to go there. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like I can help other people so well do this, but I'm doing this work along with everybody else. But yeah, I totally agree with what you said before that our planet needs this. And in fact, I know this probably isn't a very popular thing to say. I mean, I live in California. I love the natural world. I moved to Mount Shasta so I could be in the lakes every day, and I have a beautiful mountain right next to me. Let me live in the woods, man. And so every year, starting right now, we're getting wildfires and we're surrounded by smoke and wildfires, and it's scary. And I believe there's a higher wisdom with the planet as well. And I don't even know how to verbalize this, and I didn't know I was going to say this on on your podcast, but we need to be in that other way of knowing in order to be at peace with what's happening around us. Like we humans think we need to figure it out. There's a lot of climate activists that are doing very good work, but one of my friends, her name is Paloma. She was at the UN climate conference recently. She's won a Fulbright for her work with climate stuff. She told me, she said, I've been doing this work for 40 years. We're not going to solve this problem through our rational brain. There's just no way. There has to be a spiritual solution to it. And I was like, yes. I was afraid to say that to her because I knew she was more, in the scientific kind of realm. It's like, Yep.
Oh my gosh, Kim, my heart just is so open right now because, there are people that I've connected with lately who are saying the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
we do know, well, some of us recognize that our environmental crisis is really a crisis of our soul. We need to look no further than within as to explain why we're in the situation we're in. And we're never going to be able to address the outer world until we work on the inner. And we know this to be true. We know it. We know why we are here at this point, to work on that inner world and help any others who are available to do that as well. Because it is One thing that I find is a small minority of people can actually create the shifts we need. And, Dr. David Hawkins in his book Power versus Force talks about that map of consciousness, that as we grow and enhance and open our consciousness, we can influence so many more people with the ripple effect. So,
Yeah.
The majority of people on this planet are not going to all of a sudden turn to their spiritual inner world, and but the more of us that do, the more it can become a reality.
Yeah. But it's like to help us get out of fear, because it's the thinking mind that's afraid. The other part of our brain isn't afraid. The other part of our brain is at peace, and so that connected place. I've looked at climate stuff a couple times with clients and in workshops, and what shows up is that the earth is wise. Like the earth doesn't need us. The earth has it. And so, yeah, like just to help us get out of fear, because we are, obviously the whole planet, I didn't know I was going to go here with you today,
I love it.
but obviously the whole planet is going through massive change, right? I mean, huge. So we can get in all in that fear place and the news and what's going on. And it's just like a cycle of fear. And in order for whatever this evolutionary change is, we need to be in that place of peace and connectedness, and connectedness with this higher realm of wisdom. And that's what showed up for me in my visionary experience, was like, hey, honey, you're doing our work. Shake you. You got to see this. And so there's just some sort of higher magical world that has I have to say, it's really heartening for me working really deeply with my clients, because when I see what kind of work they're doing and how they're being led to do the work that they're doing, I know there's a higher wisdom going on and operating, and it heartens me. It heartens me. And so, yeah, we need to get out of that fear place, I believe. So, I know that's not really always a popular thing to say, because look at what's happening, look at the fires, look at, whatever, but look at the politics. But yeah, and I'm telling myself that too, as I say that.
I know.
I'm telling myself that. So anyway, go ahead.
We're all human beings, and we all have to remind ourselves consistently of these things. And I was reflecting on yet another horrible headline that is doom and gloom, and just reminding myself not to go there, not to get that reaction of, oh, no, because when we do that, what are we doing? We're constricting, we're pulling away from the world, we're pulling away from our inner knowing. We have to breathe into it. I think Eckhart Tolle has such great wisdom. I also follow so much of his work, and it really is about being in the present moment.
Yeah. And that there's a higher wisdom available to us right now when we're in the present moment.
So I had a conversation with someone else recently that's going to be on my podcast, who was pretty much saying the same thing you were, that we just need to recognize that the earth can take care of itself. We have to just surrender our need to control. We just need to create space, step back, recognize that the earth has its amazing consciousness. We need to surrender that we're not going to come up with the solutions with the same mindset that we had to create it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as you're talking, it's like I can feel that shift into like centeredness, Because if I'm walking around feeling like I need to fix all these problems, then I'm looking outside of myself and I'm not in that place of centeredness, if that makes sense. Where am I being moved to be next? Where am I moved to go next? What's showing up in my life that's the next thing, rather than sort of wrapping ourselves into the dramas and terrible things that are happening all over the world in different ways, wars and climate change and just, yeah. So it's like, no, I'm going to stay in my place of centeredness. I'm going to see where I am being led to go next, or what's mine to do.
So
Yeah.
beautiful. I've been kind of reflecting on this. Well, I received a divine download from a tree to do this book, The Enchanted Earth, which led to this podcast. I was being led to talk with people and have them share these amazing stories, these moving stories of being in the natural world. And the whole premise was to help people hear or read these stories and remind them of their own. You're experiencing someone else's story and you're feeling it yourself. So kind of putting you in that feeling mode.
I love that.
And
I love that.
I'm really feeling that if people are sharing these stories of amazing encounters and experiences that make them have that vibration of love, that people hearing and reading them will also be in that vibration of love through an empathetic connection with the storyteller. And then hopefully remind them of their own stories and further deepen that higher vibration of love and frequency so that it can help uplift people.
Yeah, I love that. I love your book. I love it. And I haven't seen the full copy of it yet. But I love that for that reason. Like the magic and the storytelling and the connections with trees or animals. I gave you a story of an owl, my encounter with an owl. I love that. And I think it's true. And also I want to say, just because I know you're obviously in that place of doing that yummy sensual work that is yours to do. And it is interesting how, when we're on a visionary path, it's not linear. It's not like, if somebody was to become a lawyer, there's steps to become a lawyer. And then it's like, when you do visionary work, you're just in your own place of what's yummy, what's happening here for me. And it's not like a linear, like, oh, I know where I'm going to be in 5 years. Right. But yeah, I love your book and I love what you're doing. And I think it's so needed. And bring people into their own place of magic and storytelling and what's my story? What's my story to share kind of thing. I love that.
And what I'm also realizing is when people share these really magical stories, it helps normalize them. I think too many people have experiences that they discount, that they just brush off. It may have impacted them at that moment of that curiosity and wonder and awe, like, wow, did that really happen? But then their rational brain gets involved and goes, oh, it was just the wind. Oh, it was just that. Oh, you're making things up. And unfortunately, so many of these stories just get brushed aside as imagination, which is another word that we could talk for an hour or two about at least. But it's dismissed.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't believe how many people I interviewed for this book who do work whose work involves nature in some way, from park rangers to eco-psychologists, And yet sometimes these stories are never shared with another living
Yeah.
being.
Yeah, I love that. I love the diversity of people you've interviewed and yeah, and also capturing the stories. And I agree. When I saw what you were doing with your book, I felt like, wow, I think this could really help people, speak to people, and get us into that other place. It is a hard world. We have to work, we have to earn money, we're raising kids, just it's like we're busy, and it's like, no, there's another place. There's another place we can shift into. Like that, I just did it, walking down the street, that bird flew really close to me. Isn't that cool? Or whatever it might be. Like, yeah, just get us into that other place. I love it.
Yeah, there's just too much magic in this world that is overlooked. And that
Yeah.
that old adage, stop and smell the roses. Well, think about it. Stop and smell that rose, because how could you walk by that rose without smelling it? And so often we just walk right on by.
Yeah, no, I love that. This is helping me. And I feel like I do because I moved to Manchester for that purpose to be more in nature. But yeah, I let's all do that. And for everybody listening to this podcast right now, we're going to take a moment today, more than one moment, and notice and be present with the beauty of what is. The beauty of what
What
is.
is there? What is there?
And then bringing us back to metaphor for a moment, the most powerful source of metaphor is the natural world. The way we connect with the natural world is through that sensory knowing. So it's like looking out at my beautiful tree right now, very grounded, very strong, very centered. Like mountains are visionary shapes. Some people get flowers, it's a small, more delicate. Sometimes we need to be smaller, pull back. Rivers are flowing. Water, where I love river rafting because it's moving me in the water. I'm not doing anything, I'm being moved. So it's like our connection with the natural world is through metaphor, is through those feeling qualities. Yeah, the language of the natural world is the aesthetic. Yeah. So
I mean, it goes back to our evolution. I mean, we evolved in nature. That is our mother.
there's a lake here called Lake Siskiyou. I call it Mother Lake. I call her Mother Lake. It's like I'm in my mother, and then there's this other lake here that's like a womb. So it's like I'm in the womb. Um, yeah,
Beautiful.
the mother. Let's be mothered today.
Mm. So, Kim, do you have any closing thoughts to share?
I think it's around just being centered in who we are and letting our own inner wisdom guide us. Our sensitivity is the earth speaking to us. So let's be in that sensitive place of feeling and feel our way in the unknown, because we don't know what's happening on the planet right now. There's a lot of change. We have to feel our way.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you. And everybody who's watching, please share, subscribe, like, comment. I would love to hear your thoughts about our conversation. And thank you so much for coming here, Kim. So appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Maureen. Good luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for being a part of the Enchanted Earth podcast. Comment below, share, and most of all, please hit the subscribe button so that you'll hear when we publish another inspiring episode. You can visit us at luminous-spaces.com for more information on our online courses, retreats, and offerings. Thank you and have a magical day.